greeted you at the door and gave you a brief tutorial on some of the things about the space. I'll just say, if you sent us a question in advance, please queue up in the aisle behind Monica, right in front of that microphone. And if you didn't send us a question in advance, have a seat in any of the red chairs, and at the end, we'll give you guys time to also ask a question. We'll just run the questions that were submitted first. A little bit about this space. We built this space so that we could hold events like this one. We can also play video and screen films, and we can do some other cool things in this space. There are also, though, great opportunities for you guys as our members to use this space to meet with each other for creative collaborations, to do interviews, to take meetings, whatever you need to do in this space. There are free hours between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. for you guys to do that every day. The meeting rooms on the far right, if you go in those meeting rooms and you close the door, the conversations you have in those meeting rooms are completely private. Only the people inside the room can hear them. You can also use the whiteboards in those rooms to actually have a whiteboarding session. It will actually go full screen on your computer, and you can actually whiteboard together and collaborate. And then, you know, there's also the ability to have conversations in the common space. So if you're not in a room like this theater or the meeting rooms, if you're in the general common space, you'll see a circle, a radius around you. And only the people, the video icons inside that radius can actually hear what you're saying. So it makes it easy to have a private conversation, and then somebody on the other side of the room could be also having a private conversation, and they're separate, right? So a lot of really cool functionality. You can do a gallery view where you can see the people you're talking to more full screen, like a Zoom. It takes you out of the space. You can go in present mode where you're presenting your screen. And you can do lots of other cool things in the space that make it really easy to use it for collaboration and hopefully for great conversations. So welcome. We hope you guys will use this space often and tell us how we can better use it as well. But today we're here for an Ask Me Anything with Samantha Sprecher, who is amazing, and I have known Samantha for many years, too many years, given that we're both 21. We met when we were very, very young. Samantha spent many years running Billy Crystal's production company called Face Productions. She was there for about 20 years, and they did all kinds of amazing projects while she was there, including independent comedy Here Today, which starred Billy and Tiffany Haddish, studio features like America's Sweethearts and Parental Guidance, the award-winning HBO film 61, which of course is amazing, FX TV series The Comedians. They did podcasts like Audible's Have a Nice Day, and short content for platforms like Funny or Die. She currently has another project that she's involved with Face Productions on before, which is a drama series set up at Apple. And then she also has, as a newly independent producer, a number of projects that she's setting up on her own, which include We Are Family at Netflix, a supernatural YA series based on a book trilogy called Gilded at Amazon, an animated TV series based on Michael Feldman's long-running theater show, Fairy Tale Theater 18 and Over. And she's also producing some independent films, that next rom-com called Big Coconut, psychological thriller called The Nothing, a lesbian romance called November. I look forward to that one.
It's so good.
Is it good? Awesome. And then a period psychological thriller drama called The Baroness. And I think, you know, what's really wonderful about Samantha and how she's navigated her career, not only in terms of the type of content she's chosen to support and produce and develop, but also the way she has spent her time in the industry, giving back in various ways. She was on the board of Outfest with me, although she served much longer than I did. I think I served 6 or 7 years. And Sam, how long were you on the board?
I think it was 10 years.
10 years. That's
1 year too long, maybe.
Never too long. I'm sure they're trying to get you back.
Yes, they are.
And she was on the board of Outfest for many years, helped establish the screenwriting lab there, mentoring programs, and also the Legacy Project, which is Outfest's LGBTQ film archive, the world's largest LGBTQ film archive in partnership with UCLA. And she's also been a mentor for Women in Film. And obviously Outfest and Women in Film are both partners of HUSSLUPs. We have a lot of love for both of those organizations. And so we're super excited for you guys to have the opportunity to ask Samantha about developing material, producing material, working with A-list talent, running a production company, being an independent producer, living in Los Angeles, whatever else it might be. We'll start with the folks that are queued up that have sent us questions in advance, and then we'll move to the rest of the folks in the room. But I'll sort of start with a question that I think is really apropos to what we're building at HUSSLUP, where you talk to 50 different successful creatives, whether they're producers, writers, directors, editors, and you get 50 different stories about how they kind of first broke into the industry and started building their career, right? The sort of Lana Turner getting discovered at Schwab's coffee house, coffee
That's
shop.
exactly my story.
Yeah, exactly. Mine too. Really weird. Is the myth, right? But everybody's got their kind of story of how they kind of did it. We're really hoping that HUSSLUP is going to be that story for a lot of our members, where you're able to build your network, build your community, and find meaningful opportunities that help you fast forward your career. But I'd love, Samantha, for you to tell us a little bit about how you came to LA and got started in this business.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've been in the business a really long time, and I think that there are things about the business now that are the same, and there are things that are very different. Because I think there's a whole new generation that's come in and is kind of, in an exciting way, changing the way stuff is done. But I will say that I think the thing that holds true is it's your relationships. And so much of my success in this business has been based on my network and my relationships. So when I was in college, I had a film professor who, took a liking to me, and mostly because I loved his film theory class, and helped me get internships. And my last internship that I had, they hired me. So I was the only one of my friends who graduated from college with a job at an agency. And depending on what you want to do in the business, I think that's a great first job, because you learn so many like hard real world skills that you use in the business. And also the business is still controlled by agents, so you also really get an overview of how it runs and how it works. So I know like a lot of you aren't at that place in your career where you're at the starting spot, but just I do still think it's a valuable place. I was working at an agency, and they wanted to promote me. I was there about 3 years as an assistant to 3 agents. They wanted to promote me to be an agent. I didn't want to represent their crappy clients, to be completely honest. So I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but then one of my friends suggested to me that I get a development job. And I didn't really know what that was, and then they explained it to me, and I was like, yeah, I want that job. So I interviewed with this producer named Kathy Conrad, who at the time was a development executive working for this director, Norman Jewison, and we had a great meeting. And Kathy is a really tough personality, so if anybody knows Kathy, they'll think this is kind of a crazy story, which is we really hit it off. This is not the part of the story that's crazy. She wanted to hire me for the job, and she was going to, and then her old assistant called her and said, listen, I know all the mistakes I made. I'm sorry, I want to come back. And she was like, listen, I really like you, but he knows the computer system, so I'm going to hire him back. That's not the crazy part.
Soul crushing.
Yeah, well, the crazy part of the story is that for 6 months, she sent my resume everywhere around town, and I interviewed at all of these places for jobs. And there was one job that she was like, I think this job is perfect for you. And she really pushed the company to hire me, which was this company called Gotham Pictures. And it was an independent production company founded by 5 very famous line producers who had come up in the business, like line producing for Woody Allen, for Mike Nichols. One of the people who's the line producer is now the head, well, I'm not sure if he's still there, but he was the head of physical production at Fox for many years, this guy, Joe Hartwick. And I was there, and I really learned the development business there. It was 2 of us, and the person who was my boss had been like a superstar executive at New Line, and come up the ranks with Mike DeLuca. And he sort of flamed out and decided to go be a shrink instead of stay in the business, and I stayed in the business. But I got that first from my relationship with Kathy, and then I made a leap to Dreamworks. Again, a friend helped me get that job where I was a staff reader, and that was the hardest job ever. I was reading 4 scripts a day and writing coverage, like in a like 8-hour work day, right? With a half an hour for lunch. Like, it was so much. I mean, to read 4 scripts and write like intelligent, coherent coverage on it. It was like so much. I had to stack like this of coverage when I left because we printed things out in those days. I think I single-handedly killed the environment. So then I, with a friend's help, I left there and I went to work for this producer called Schiff, who at the time, he had a deal at Disney, and and I was his junior exec, and he had just finished shooting Rushmore. That was his movie at the time. I had nothing to do with it. It was all him. And I worked there for about a year. He's a lovely human. He and I were not a good match. And I was sort of at this place in my career where I was like, okay, listen, I'm so frustrated with this process of never getting anything made and not even selling things that I was like, maybe I should go to business school or law school or just get out of this business and do something different. And one of my best friends called me and said, hey, I know you're not happy where you're at. Billy Crystal's looking for someone to run his production company. Do you wanna go up for it? And I was not, I was a CE, I wasn't in a place where I was ready to run someone's company. But I went through the whole interview process. I met with him twice. And he and I just really hit it off. Like we just kind of liked each other from the beginning. And for him, it's, it's really about, do I want to be in a room with this person every day? Like, do I like this person? And I'd always been a fan. So like I knew his sensibility and responded to his sensibility. And so, cut to 21 years later, actually, and it only took a pandemic to split us up. We had this great run. And so, like, I don't know, June of 2020, I went out on my own. I was trying to decide what I wanted to do. And as you know, the world was topsy-turvy in June of 2020. And, there were no jobs and I didn't really want a job. And I always wanted to produce on my own. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to take this leap. Like, I'm just going to do it. And, my big fear was no one will send me material without working for Billy. Like, I just won't be able to get good material on my own. And honestly, I just started reaching out slowly to people about it. Like, I just told like my core circle, I was like, oh, I'll do a big email, about all of this. But about 2 weeks before I kind of officially hung my own shingle, I just reached out to, I don't know, 20 people. I got so much material that I didn't know what, and some of it was, not great, but all of it was, all of it was good. All of it was good. Some of it was not a good fit for me. I shouldn't say not great. Some of it wasn't a good fit for me. And it was more than I could even process in such a short period of time. And so, I was like, oh wow. And I was, I was off to the races. And one of the other strategies that I set some goals for myself. And one of the things that I knew that I needed was, because I'd been working for one person for so long, I didn't have the seller's reach that I needed to really do it just on my own. So one of my other strategies was to partner up with people who would further my reach as a producer, and really use that group of that core of relationships to sell projects quickly. And I had some really ambitious goals for myself. And I wanted to sell a project in my first 3 months. I did. I wanted to make a movie in my first year. I did. It wasn't the movie I thought I was gonna make, but I made a movie in my first year. And the friends of mine who are producers with deals, who reached out to me and said, I want to work with you, and please bring me projects, and this is the kind of thing I'm looking for. It was pretty great. So I, cut to almost 3 years later, I've made very little money, but I've sold a ton of stuff. So I'm like, oh, okay. And, the other thing is I have a great lawyer who really believes in me and has put a lot of effort and energy into helping me build this business. And he says that I'm about to be successful. So I'm like, or financially successful. He's like, I just called him last week and said, by the way, I just sold another project. He's like, you're unbelievable. So, anyway, so that's where I am. And I will just say your relationships are everything. Build them, nurture them, invest in people who invest in you, help people where you can, and don't be afraid to say no. you can say it's so hard in this business, like you'll send material to someone and it'll just sit there, like in their inbox, in their pile, and I'm guilty of it for sure. And I'm getting better about just saying, I don't have the capacity right now. Like, I'm sure your script is great and maybe I'm gonna miss out on something, but I can't do it. And if you can read stuff and you read it and you don't like it, just say it's not for me. And then move on, because that no frees that person. And if you have some constructive feedback, that's always helpful. But
I think one of the things you said, Samantha, that's really useful that I think can't be underestimated is being generous and treating people with kindness and generosity, even if the project isn't right for you, or even when she gives the job to her old assistant but helps you find another job. I think, community clinic 2 nights ago where they were honoring a former colleague of mine, David Eilenberg, who now oversees all of original content for Roku. And David and I kind of came up in the business together. He's one of the nicest guys out there. And the turnout was massive, right? And they raised over $200,000 for the event. Howie Mandel was there to give him the award and say lots of disparagingly funny things. And I think, one of the things that's nice is you walk into that room and, people are coming up, oh my God, I haven't seen you, what are you up to, and everybody's glad to see you because they know that, like, you've done things for them that were generous and helpful and good, and one of the rules I have actually at events like that, I don't know about you, Samantha, but one of the rules I have at events like that is to ask people about their families, their spouses, their kids, their friends, their parents, whatever I know is going on in their lives, rather than about business, because I think sometimes we forget to humanize our relationships in this business. But I think that's a great takeaway from what you were just saying. We'll shift it to the group of folks that are queued up in the aisle that have sent their questions in advance. And Monica, I think you were first in that line. And so we'll kind of run this list and then this line, and then we can open it up to the room as well.
And also, I just want to say thanks everyone for being here. This is my first AMA, and I previewed a few of the questions, and I'm just happy to share information and experience with you. We're all out there hustling. We can't hear you, Monica. You're asking a question.
We might not be able to hear your audio. I don't know if you're on headphones or if you have your computer mic. Oh, I think you hear me now. There we go. Yeah. There we go. Now we got it.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So hello. It's great to be here. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And yeah, it's a lot of pressure being the first one to ask a question. And also because I'm in Luxembourg, really far from LA.
Oh my gosh, it's like the middle of the night for you.
Yeah, it's about 1:30.
Oh my gosh, thanks
so, yeah.
Welcome, Monica. All these
late for a drink.
They're like 4 in the afternoon, so you get the gold star.
Yeah, I mean, writers are the owls, so it's okay. So yeah, I have a very specific question. What do you think about comedy blended with a strong environmental theme? I've been told that such a theme is divisive, too political, and very difficult to market. So yeah, that's my question.
Well, I mean that's a sort of a general question, but I will just say that I think that everything depends on material. I think it's a super important topic to explore, and I think the key to any comedy being successful in the marketplace is that it's funny, and that there's something about those characters that that people can relate to. Because I don't think someone tunes into a show to watch a show about the environment or environmental concerns, they tune in to watch a show because of the characters who are dealing with those issues. So, I think if your characters are something that resonate with folks, then the setting for the show won't matter. You could put them in a garbage dump and people will tune in every week to watch it because they want to see those characters. So I think it really comes from character first, and then is it funny? I think like everyone here is raving about The Bear, which is supposedly a comedy, but I don't think so.
You call it a dramedy?
I guess. I mean, I find the show hard to watch because it's just a bunch of yelling white men, but but it is really good writing. Like, you can only take it in doses. But if you said, "Oh, I'm going to do a show set in a greasy spoon, like fast food joint," are they in Philadelphia or in Chicago? Like, if you just pitched the world of that show, I think people would go, "Why?" But I think people are watching it because of the characters, right, and because of the storyline. Yeah, the writing is really good. So that's what I would say back to you is I don't think you should limit yourself based on you've heard or you've felt resistance about a show that touches on those issues or is set around those issues. I think that the note behind the note might be that your characters aren't yet at that place where there are things that people will tune into to watch. Because if you think about a TV series, right, like a comedy budget for an episode is what, like $3 to $5 million. So if it's a 10 episode series, you're asking someone for $30 to $50 million to make this show. So you need to know that you have an audience there for it.
And I'll give an older example, which is when they developed Robert Altman's film MASH for TV, right? And MASH was really about the Vietnam War, but CBS was really skittish. They were like, this is a very serious topic, and what if our viewers don't like us making fun of a war that's incredibly unpopular? And the sort of split the difference was that they set it in Korea, right? They set it during the Korean War to give it some distance on the topic, right? So there are sometimes anxieties that buyers have, right, about what an audience is willing to sort of laugh about, and you may want to think about that as you're writing your show as well. Like, how do I make it okay to laugh about this topic, right? How do I make it acceptable to laugh about the things that I'm talking about that might otherwise be considered serious?
Yeah, it's a great example.
So that's great. So we'll continue on then, and we'll go to AJ. And I'll just remind you guys to unmute when you're asking a question, and then remute just so that we can give our questioner and Samantha the floor.
Wonderful. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Hi, AJ.
Wonderful. Hey, Samantha, thank you for being here. H, thank you for setting this up.
You bet.
So I have kind of a multi-layered question. So please excuse me for kind of just dumping it all at once. But I've been an actor going on 16 years, and I've had my shares of successes and ups and downs, ebbs and flows. So one thing that the pandemic did for me, sort of like it allowed you to branch out on your own and, take this leap. It allowed me to focus on projects that I want to see, right? And kind of develop my own stories. But being new to this avenue of the business, I guess my question is, what is the best way to get my materials in front of someone like you, right? If I'm looking to get my own projects made, is it exclusively through an agency, literary agency, or self-submissions? And I guess the follow-up question to that is, what materials do you like to see? Is it a finished script? Is it a pitch? Is it a pitch deck or one sheet? I guess that's kind of the two-part question. And one thing that kind of came up as you were talking, when you said, some material is not right for you, I'd love to know kind of what is right for you, or what do you look for in projects that you want to get behind?
Those are great questions. So I think if your project is a TV project, and you don't have TV credits, right, yet, I think it is really helpful if you've written a pilot script. And if you have not necessarily a Bible, but just sort of an idea of, like if you have the first season thought out and you've done the work of like who the characters are. But I think a really strong pilot script, because it's really helpful to know that like you can write, right, and what your voice is. And it's really hard to sell pitches right now. There are a few lucky moments. Like I'm not gonna lie, like I've had a couple of them myself, where I've had a few lucky moments where I've been able to sell a pitch, but that's taken a lot of packaging. Like I've had to attach a lot of elements to it in order to be able to get to that place. So I think you need a script. I think that you need also to activate your network. If you've been in the business for such a long time, just start getting people to read it, and make a list of folks who produce the shows that are similar to yours in tone, or size or scope, that where there where there's crossover, and see if do a little stalking on the internet and see where your friend group like overlaps, and just try to get people to send the script to that person. Like I think bringing on for a television project like an independent producer like me is that can be really helpful. I really think for TV you need to look at TV shows and aim for those people who are producer level or co-EP level. If you have the reach to get to a showrunner, that's amazing. Like leverage that all you can, and then try to get those people to come on board and oversee you, because a lot of writers have script deals or overall things that they can't fill with their own development, so they love to like have someone come in with an idea and they just help them and work on that. As far as material, there's a couple of things. First of all, I have to know that I want to spend 7 to 10 years with these characters, because I have to say it takes that long to get something made, whether it's a feature or a TV series.
And that's like the threshold question, because I don't want to spend 7 to 10 years with some of the people in my family. So
Yeah, exactly.
I think you got to really fall in love with your characters, right? And then help other people fall in love with their characters. That's like,
yeah, because I'm gonna be working for free for 7 to 10 years with these characters and this writer or writers. I have to know that I have the passion to keep going out there and trying to sell it and put it together. And it's just a lot of work, and it took me a little bit to really realize that and make that part of a line in the sand for myself. But I have about 25 projects now. It's too many, and some of them are going to just naturally disappear. And oddly enough, one of the projects that I was gonna let go, I got a call out. It's a book. I got a call out of the blue from a big production company that was like, "Hey, we know you have the shopping rights to this book. We want to do it." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, I guess that one's not going away." And I will say that I've had so many fortuitous things like that happen, where
it's with great taste.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have great taste. I think I also have sometimes this difficult taste, but it just takes a long time, right? So I just say leverage your network. Definitely write that script. Get notes on it from your folks around you, and if you have a table read is great. I also think if you have relationships with writers who, if it's a comedy, who are like comedy writers who've been on staff, to get them to read it and give you feedback on it is also really helpful.
So sorry to kind of follow up here. I know I'm out of pocket, but I already have the script ready. I've written the script. I've gotten a couple of people to read it. So the next step here would be to do that internet stalking and find some independent producers.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I would say if it's a script that's similar in tone to like Hacks, right? Like you're never gonna get the showrunners from Hacks to look at it just because they're so busy and everyone is sending them everything. But you can look at the people who are producer level, producer level writers are people who have been given more responsibility on a show. They sometimes, work and help to run a room or interact more, like they're given responsibilities in the room and producing responsibilities on episodes. So those are people that like are going to be next in line to get their own show, so they can be helpful. Co-EPs are like great. I mean, those are people that are fantastic to pick off. They're all working like crazy right now, but like it's a great way to to try to find the person who's the right match. And so just doing a little bit of detective work. It's your own only murders in the building, like going around.
The first stop is Hustle Up, right? As long as you have
for sure.
on your profile, set your privacy setting, and then go to work on Hustle Up, looking at the producers who are available and see if you can strike up a conversation with some of them.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and the other thing too is it's really hard to get a manager involved, but sometimes managers want to be producers too, and maybe there's someone there who will hip pocket you on that first script, or if you're repped as an actor, leverage your agents or whatever to help you also find someone. Maybe they want to send it out and set you up on meetings.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate you.
Thanks, AJ. So Melissa, I think you're next up in our queue. If you guys want to move down toward the mic, you can too. You don't have to stay back at the back of the room. And we'll keep going. I think Samantha does have a hard out at 5 o'clock, so we'll try to get all these questions in before she has to jump out. And you're teaching at UCLA, is that right?
Yeah, I'm teaching at UCLA Extension. One of the ways in which an independent producer has to help fund their lives. That's a whole other AMA.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
Hey, you can hear me. So I wrote in the question saying that I'm a writer-director, and I've done 6 short films so far, and I have a script for a feature that I'd like to direct. It's done fairly well at some of the competitions, quarterfinal and semifinalist positions, and a lot of the advice I get for pitching is to sell the script, whereas I'd really like to direct this. So figuring out how to get to producers the best way and pitching the package with me as the director.
You need a pitch deck. You need something that is, if you have a strong script, that's fantastic. You need a pitch deck that speaks to your director's statement, and I'm sure you've done this on your shorts, and how you see the movie, who your characters are, and to go along with it, you should also include if one of your short films or a link to your website but one of your short films that visually that you feel like is a good calling card for this feature, and then just start reaching out to the producers who you think would be the right producers for it. It's hard when this would be your first feature, and even though you've directed 6 shorts, it's still so hard. One of the projects I have is with an award-winning commercial director who's been directing giant budget commercials for 25 years, and his stuff is beautiful, and it's a great calling card for the feature that he wants to direct, and it's still, and we've even gotten big movie stars attached to it, and it's still hard to get that last little bit of financing because he's a first-time director. But you have to, if you have a sizzle for it, depending on what the tone of the film is, and then I have a lot of success sending the lookbook first to people before I send the script. It seems to leap through some of those we don't take unsolicited submissions. By the way, I've started getting these emails back from folks that I'm just like, really? I mean, I've been in the business 31 years. I've produced, I'm a real live producer with projects set up at all over the place, and you're giving me the unsolicited submissions thing. I was like, wow, okay. I mean, and I have, I have signed them in order to get people to look at material, whatever the NDA clauses are that they ask for. But I do find that the people like a pitch deck.
And I think also, Samantha, would you recommend that if you can find the right talent to attach to the project, that that's also a way to package it, right? If you have that A-list actor or actress who loves a part in the script, that can sometimes help overcome the hurdle of a first-time director.
Listen, it's all talent-based, so ultimately that's what you need. You need to get your actors attached in order to get your financing, and to be able to sell the movie. And there's a whole dance about like the chicken or the egg there, of how to get talent. And there's no science to it. I just leverage my relationships and just throw as much stuff at the wall as I can. I mean, I try to be judicious with the agents, but I just keep pounding. I just got an actor attached to one of my projects who, when he was repped at CAA, they passed on it, and I knew they never sent it to the actor. And when he moved to UTA, I actually knew his agent, and I said, hey, CAA passed on this for him. We think he's our first choice. Would you look at it? Like, I don't think he ever saw it. And they read it and they loved it, and cut to, I mean, it's been almost 5 months now, he's attached. So, it's that sort of process. You just can never say die. You just keep trying.
Well, I think one of the takeaways of what you just said too is that you were straightforward and transparent with UTA. You told them, hey, CA has already seen this script, so that they didn't feel like they were not given the full information, right? Because you never want them to look foolish in front of their client or to not know what's happened, right?
Yeah.
Let's move on to Mildred, and I think
Hi, Mildred.
Hi there. I'm so glad we have Outfest in common. I screened a really tiny short, Christopher Baxter's last year.
Oh, that's great. I love Christopher Baxter.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just such a great platform, and Outfest
It's really great for shorts. I mean, it's really great for shorts. It's such a, especially if your short screens in the big DGA 1 theater, like, you'll just never have a better audience. It's really terrific.
Yeah, no, it's great. So, but quickly, so that other people can squeeze in, I wanted to know what your thoughts were about the podcast space. I've written 2 podcasts, 2 fiction podcasts. One of them was part of a series that was nominated for an Ambies, the new awards for podcasts. I know that Have a Nice Day was, oh, thank you. I know that Have a Nice Day was based on existing IP, but what are your thoughts about, producing podcasts, attaching talent, and so forth?
I have to say, other than Have a Nice Day, I have no experience in podcasts. I do have a television idea that I tried to reverse engineer as a podcast to create IP for it, and I failed spectacularly at that, and decided just to stick in the lane that I know. With Have a Nice Day, Audible came to, we came to Audible through Funny or Die. Funny or Die wanted to do, they were trying to start a relationship with Audible, and then they ended up stepping out of it for, I'm not sure why, but they basically connected us with Audible, and then we just figured out how to do it, and we leveraged, Billy. It was a script that we had developed and sold to New Line many years ago. And then Billy just leveraged his relationships. He got Annette Bening on board, and then once we had Annette, it was really easy to get Kevin Kline, and then the whole cast just sort of filled in from there. It was really, really fun to do. We did 2 nights at the Minetta Lane Theater and in front of a live audience. We had 2 days of rehearsal and then 2 days of taping and edited it all together. I think it was a big hit for them. I have no idea. But I'm really proud of it. I mean, I think it's really fun. And it was fun for this, project that we all had such high hopes for. And we almost actually got it made into a movie, and then it just fizzled because people were afraid of politics. But it's yeah. I think people are totally buying IP from the podcast space. And I think it's also something you can do yourself if you have the technical skills. But it is a viable way to create IP for sure.
I'll just jump in really, Mildred, I was going to say, I'll jump in really quickly, and I'll just say, there's a lot of podcasts out there. For every, podcast that sort of gets talked about and listened to by everybody, there are, a lot of podcasts that don't. And I think that razor thin margin, right? Because most of these podcast distributors make their money on advertising, which means it has to drive earballs, right? As opposed to eyeballs. And I think one of the things you should think about is there a podcasting producer or company that can help you with the distribution part of your podcast, right? And there are some smaller ones like Cadence 37, Cadence 39. There's also a new podcasting company by someone who worked for me at Detour. I launched an early podcasting company many years ago. Stacy Book, who's now running a company called Frequency Machine. They're doing scripted content. Wondery, obviously, Hernan Lopez's company. And so, you might want to look at some of these companies that are smaller that do take swings on content and see if there's a way to partner with them while still obviously retaining rights in your show and in your IP.
Fantastic, a really generous answer, thank you.
You bet. Hey Bruce, you're up. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay. Hi H, I'm in your mother's home province. I'm in Halifax, Nova
Nice.
Scotia.
It's a
Yes.
beautiful spot. I was
And-
supposed to go, but I got COVID for the first time and I didn't make it. So
Oh, no.
she's up there right now enjoying the summer and drinking a Keith's for me.
There you go. No, it's been a great summer. And Samantha, thank you for your time. This has been really interesting. Love the new space, love the new room. And I've got kind of a specific question based on your period psychological drama, The Baroness.
Mhm.
If it's the same project that is currently on IMDb Pro,
It's
written
not.
by, oh, it's not?
No, but you can ask the question anyway, then I'll tell you about mine.
Okay, well, all right. I was wondering about if she was seeking co-production with Belgium, because connecting the dots, it sounded like this movie would be shot in Belgium, and so I was more curious, I guess, about financing with co-producers from Europe, and at what stage of the development process you might recommend the producer, start reaching out.
So I think before you can really start with getting financiers on board, whomever the financiers are, your script has to be solid. You have to really know it's the strongest that it can be, because you're going to get one read from those folks. It's going to go in their computer system, and it doesn't matter how many drafts later you send it to them. Like, that's that. For our movie, we're financed independently. The director and one of the other producers have raised all the money. We need a little bit more, but we have UTA on board now to help us with that. We're shooting the movie in Austria, and we have a production services company there that we're running it all through, and we're gonna, in order to activate a tax credit.
Tax credits are really important to this process. Am I right, Samantha?
Yeah, it is. It's really helping us a lot. And also the exchange rate, like at the moment, the dollar is very strong. We'll see what happens with that though. So we haven't, UTA wants to do the sales on the movie, so we haven't gone yet to co-producers for international, because I think that in general, sales agents are a little shy about bringing on international partners or doing international sales, because the biggest play for independent films right now is to sell them to a streamer, and streamers want them for the world. So if you make a deal, if you do any kind of foreign sales, and there's really the bottoms falling out of foreign sales, so you're not really making that much money off of them. The kill fees are pretty significant. If a streamer wants it, for the world, and it can sometimes hamper your project.
Yeah, just to add to that, the project I'm working on has already some interest has been shown from Scandinavian producers in Sweden, but the common refrain I'm getting is, well, get your producer in line in Canada first, then come to us, because one of the bigger ones over there, Viaplay, is entering into the Canadian market next year. So anyway, but thank you.
There's a lot of money in Canada for sure, depending on the project.
Yeah, thanks again. Great.
Sure, you're welcome.
Thanks, Bruce. I think Bruce brings up a really good question. We'll do a separate AMA perhaps early in 2023 around international production and international rights. And I think there are a lot of ways to sort of be creative about how you co-finance across multiple territories or use tax credit. It's a very interesting set of questions. So Tony, go for it.
Hi, first H, let me say it's so great to finally meet you virtually. I don't know, I just completed the boot camp with NBC Compact Learn and Live.
Oh, very
And
cool.
Yeah, the 8-week boot camp, and so that's how I found out about HUSSLUP. So congratulations, you're
That's
inspiration to me.
That's
In your
great.
businesses. And Samantha, thank you so much for this. And I have probably like so many questions for you, but I know
Lay on me.
exactly. But I just wanted to know, because I'm starting a production company / talent management company, and I wanted to also like produce my own movies. So like Tyler does, with his movies at my production company. And I want to know about how to get copywriting or whatever I need to adapt a book into a movie so that my studio can make that movie. Like, I don't want to send a script to, it's a comic book, like to DC Comics. I want to do it myself, but how do I find the people to get the permission to use one of their characters and make a movie, a DC comic book movie, like, Wonder Woman or something like that?
So, wait, let me just ask a clarifying question. So is the property that you want, the character you want to use, a DC comic character?
Yes, it is. And the thing is, I reached out to
You gotta go through Warner Brothers, and
Yeah,
then they're never gonna let you have it. I don't want to be a pessimist about things, but it's just like, forget it. But if you really want that character and you can't let it go, which I know this happens, like we get like dogs with a bone that we just can't let something go.
Right.
You need to find your way, and this is probably, a 5-year goal. You need to find your way to the biggest like director that you can think of, who might be an interesting choice for the piece, and just sell them on it. Maybe find your way to a producer who has a deal at Warner Brothers Discovery, try to sell them on it. I mean, it's you have to get Warner Brothers to give permission, and they are, as we just saw with the cancellation of Batgirl, they're having this like moment where they're being really, they're tightening up their grip on the DC universe. So they're going to be super protective. They're only going to give those characters to the right people. They're coming up with their own like Marvel-esque plan for what they want to do with those characters in the universe. So look, I'm all for giving it a try, but it's just going to be an uphill battle. And the only way you'll probably be able to do it is through that talent relationship or that filmmaker relationship, and finding someone who you can get to or work your way to in the goal of getting someone who has a deal at Warner Brothers is probably the easiest and best way.
Okay, and so let me just ask one more quick question. Can you give any advice to me as a new producer, a director or entrepreneur starting in the industry? Like, what are some things when you were starting that you would change, that you've learned? Just those little nuggets of how to start on a good foundation.
I don't think I would do anything over. Everything that I did has led me to the place where I am now, and I'm very happy in the place that I am now.
Okay.
So I'm not a big, I definitely I've learned from mistakes and grown as I've gone along, but I don't even think I would change the mistakes, right? Because they all have added up to the place where I am now. But I will say,
change some of my mistakes. I changed some of mine.
Listen, the only big mistake I would change is I would have actually had more conversations with my great grandmother when I was younger. That's my big thing. But I will say that the one thing I will say is it's really, 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 really hard to make a living as an independent producer. It is, if you look at the amount of stuff that I've sold in the last 2.5 years, I should be buying a small yacht, right? And I don't get paid until things go into production because there aren't any development fees for producers. So the one thing I'll say about your business that you just kind of pitched out is the fact that you want to have you want to do management, you want to have management be part of what you're doing. That's a great way to generate income and projects, and and to support yourself. It's basically going to be 3 years before I make any money. So
It's a long process.
It's a long process. You really have to just think about the, I've made some money, I'm not, but I mean, like a consistent, steady living, it takes time. So you just have to know that you're building that business and it's going to be 3 years.
What do you do in between that time though? Do you do work at the jobs, or you know what I mean? What do you do?
Well, I have to say the first year of it, I had I'm not supposed to talk about it, but I had a really nice severance package, and thank God for Biden and the government's generous unemployment. I had those things to help me get through. I have savings. I have a spouse that has a good job. You have all of those things that have helped. But we were just joking earlier. I'm teaching classes. I taught a class this summer, and I'm teaching in the fall, and I'm an okay teacher. I could probably be a really good teacher, but I've learned that shine is off that penny, and I want to be a producer. I don't want to be a teacher. So
I would jump in and just add, I think, Tony,
just hustle.
when you're kind of starting out, I think it's great to have an end goal, right? Eventually I want to own my own production company, develop my own IP. I want to be working with the producers at Warner Brothers to bring, DC characters to life. And I think probably there are some stepping stones to get there that would A, help you make a living, and B, help you get those relationships and those skills in place that are going to help you with your ultimate goal, right? So you're interested actually in the management side, because managers obviously can not only manage talent, they can also produce and help agents. So if you're interested in management companies, then I would say, hey, why don't you think about trying to find a role at a management company where you can really learn how their business works, you can really make those relationships, hopefully actually build a book of business, and become successful in that space, right? As a launching off point to whatever you want to do in a more solo career or entrepreneurial career.
Yeah, that's that's terrific advice, because you also will learn how to be a manager, right? You'll learn how to get people jobs. You'll learn how that business is run.
And you'll meet everybody, right?
You'll meet everybody. And if depending on where you are, if you want to go and start as an assistant or coordinator there, you can do that. But if you want to just start from managing, you just, all managers set their target list, right? Who are the writers that I want to represent, and just start, can I get to them? And you start going after them. A lot of times you make a relationship with an agent and say, I want to manage, and maybe they'll throw you a couple of clients that they need help with. So they're, and
the high maintenance clients.
Right.
Yeah. But I will say that, the more clients you can take on who already are working, so that you're not building someone from scratch, the better.
Okay, thank you. And the last thing is, I'm so glad I did because the whole thing was doing that with NBC. That's what I'm trying to do now, since I just finished. So I'm writing a pilot for them, because it's
That's
a
great.
partnership and branding foundation boot camp. And so I'm like, I got these connects with NBC now. I want them to mentor me. So thanks so much for that.
That's great. That's super smart. Leverage that relationship.
So I know, Sam, you have a heart out for office hours. Are you okay?
I have a little time.
So let's go ahead and take the last two, Cheryl and Elren.
Well, thanks you guys for doing this today. Really appreciate you taking a few extra minutes over the 5 o'clock hour, or wherever it is for everybody. Anyway, I have recently created a couple of historical drama series myself, and I was curious about hearing about the Baroness, and also selling to streamers, etc., because it seems like they aren't buying them as much from the United States as they are from, say, British writers and writers around the world. Can you talk about those?
Yeah, I think it's really hard to sell to streamers right now, because the stock market, Netflix has lost half of its value at this point. I mean, it was 2/3 for a second, but I think it's like back to half. And there's and I think viewers are, the viewership numbers are declining for a lot of folks. So there's going to be a little bit of a consolidation. So I can feel the market freezing up a little bit, but I think that you can still sell a historical drama. I think they do really well overseas. There's a definite appetite for it there. But I mean, I think if you just look at the success of League of Their Own on Amazon, it's it's historical light, but it's it's a fun little show. I think that there's always an audience for that. I guess the question is your historical drama like a murder show? Is it a detective show? Is it a comedy? Like, what type of historical show is it? And then you really you have to package it up. You need that showrunner to supervise. I don't know if you're a showrunner. Your name is so small, I can't quite see it. But
I'm not at that high. I'm not at showrunner level yet.
Yeah. So you'll need someone to like supervise, right? And if all of the places, they all have deals with writers, and that's a great way to just target those folks because they want to satisfy those deals. And they love to supervise, but getting that right, that partner on board is really helpful. And I've totally I've gone to like UK writers and showrunners to try to bring them on board and bring them back here for certain projects. So
there's a bit of cachet for that for period or historical dramas, right? Because the Brits have been the ones writing most of those, and the streamers and the cablers and the folks here in the US are often buying those shows in a second window or as a negative pickup or other things, right? So whether it's The Queen or other things, those are really produced and written in Great Britain. So if you can package with a well-known writer who might want to break into the US market, right, and is excited to have that opportunity, that could be a way in.
Yeah, and depending on where the story is set, Netflix in particular, but a lot of the other streamers are doing this too, have local productions. So like, Netflix has like a French office, they have a British office, I think they have a Swedish office, a German office. And so like they're trying to do like local content. It could be an issue if it's in English, but I don't know. It's also a great way because they're buying material for those specific places, and the execs here don't necessarily know what the execs there are doing.
They definitely don't, because I talked to someone at Netflix, and I'm like, can you get me into the French market? Because they were just opening that up, and he says, well, I don't know if I can find that out even for you.
Yeah. They've actually just opened their French office. But it really needs to be French content. Like, it needs to be French language. They're trying to get around the French have such strict content laws. They're trying to like get around that by creating their own content and make friends with the French, because the French hate Netflix.
And The Baroness, what is a true story? Is it based on?
No, it's fiction. It's basically a smart house version of Misery. It is an Austrian baroness who hires a young American composer to finish a piece of music that's really just fragments, and there's a whole sort of family history around and trauma around that. And then she just tortures him until he ends up writing the best piece of his life. It's really, really great. It's 3 characters set in the Austrian Alps in a chateau there.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So great to speak.
Yeah, you too.
Well,
good luck with your project.
Well, thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Cheryl. And Ella, you're going to be our last question of the AMA. Whoops, I'm having trouble hearing you. Are other folks hearing?
I can hear.
Nothing here.
Their AirPods have failed you.
It's the AirPod.
Yeah, they fail me all the time.
If you go to the microphone, you should be able to select. Or actually, if you go to settings, I'm sorry, Alren, if you go to the settings icon on the right, it'll give you the choice of which microphone to use.
Oh, look at that, it does.
So just select MacBook or, there you go, now we got you. Now we got you.
All right, got it. Awesome. All right. So my question is a little bit more like short form media based. So I mainly work in producing commercials, branding content, and advertising, and I still kind of work on my own narrative features. What advice do you have someone that's doing for both? Do you recommend working in both or just set to one? So the basic question is basically short form versus feature and burning the camel at both ends, so to speak, to kind of.
Those are a lot of separate questions. I will just say that for
it's a
burning
loaded
the
one.
candle at both ends, that's like, you just have to decide what your own capacity is. As far as working in both forms, I say, yeah, sure, why not? One of my producing partners on, a bunch of my projects is one of my really good friends from college, and she's made her living, producing commercials, big commercials. She's really successful in that world, and she's always wanted to do, narrative. And we have a great skill set because my background is story and hers is a lot of physical production. And so we're really complementary. She has great story sense, just hasn't gotten to use that muscle. And she's, she's brought me on to do some work on commercials when she can. And I'll just say it pays really well. I would stay in commercials making money if you can, and say no to things, when you need to say no to things. But I think that there's a lot, there's a lot of cool stuff that happens in commercials and in that world, that content. So many toys you get to play with. I think story-wise and narrative-wise, sometimes they're on the front end of things that the film and TV world are way behind on. I think that in the commercial, like in that short form space, there's so much talk about how you get to an audience through TikTok, through Instagram, through Vines, for all these different ways of grabbing attention, and who that audience is and those demographics. That's incredibly valuable information in the film and TV world. So
I would also say a lot of features start out as shorts, right? So you have the experience and the expertise to support producing or writing or whatever you do in that arena, maybe everything, a short, and then use that to kind of incubate and develop your idea into a feature or even a series if that's what you think it is, right? So,
and you also have so many vendor relationships where you could call in favors for equipment and for things if you want to do, I don't know what type of long form content you'd want to do, but there's a lot of favors you can call in from that world too, for equipment to be able to, make an indie in an affordable way.
That's right. Yep.
Or spec out a pilot or whatever.
Thank you.
Welcome. I actually have a few more minutes because I can see that no one has logged on to the open office hours. So
those bad students.
It's fine. They hate me right now because I realized I did the math wrong in the final project. I'm making half of them do it a week early.
But now they need you because it's a week early. We'll take two more questions if there are two more folks who want to queue up. And I'll just take an opportunity before we do end to say we are doing our second member mixer this Sunday at a bar on the west side of LA called Sorry Not Sorry. You all should have gotten your member emailer that talked about this, but if for some reason you didn't get it, the banner will be up at the top of the feed when you open your app the next time so that you can RSVP. It's this Sunday from 3 to 6, and it should be a lot of fun. At our first member mixer in June, we had almost 150 people show up. It was great to see people connecting with each other and meeting each other, and so we hope that you guys will join us on Sunday and break bread in person, so to speak. So Monique, go ahead. You're muted right now, so feel free to unmute.
Hi, Monique.
And,
hi. So thanks for coming. I don't think we've covered this. I do think AJ sort of asked it, but I wanted to ask you more directly. What types of projects are you looking for right now?
Well, right now I'm not looking for any projects because I really am at capacity. So hence the sort of more general answer that I gave about the wanting to live with these characters for such a long period of time. But I'll say that when I started, I thought, because I came from comedy, that I would do a lot more comedies. But oddly enough, the shows that I've sold are all dramas. and not comedies. I want to try to do content that contributes to making the world a better place in some way, shape, or form. I'm mostly interested in female-driven stories, partly because I've spent the last 21 years doing, male protagonists, male-centered stories, which I've loved everything that I've worked on. I'm really proud of all of it. I was just like, oh, now I can get to explore my, my own voice and stories that are important to me. I wanted to do shows that or something that my kids could watch and love. So the show I sold to Amazon, my kids are really into mythology, and it's sort of centered around Korean mythology, but through the journey of a 16-year-old Korean American girl who realizes her family's cursed and she has to break the curse, otherwise she'll end up becoming the bride of this Korean demigod.
That happened to me once.
What? Happened to you once?
Once.
Yeah. So it's super fun. It's like Buffy-esque, and the deal's still going on with Amazon, but I think it's gonna close soon, which is great. And that was one of the first things that I was able to put together. It was a book series that I had loved and was not a Billy Crystal story at all. And in fact, when I saw the book series first, like the TV space didn't exist. And one of the passes that I got on it was, no one's gonna watch a movie about a 16-year-old Korean American girl set in Seoul. And I think honestly, at the time, maybe they were right. Like maybe the audience in the theater wasn't there for it, right? And it also could have been a function of the fact that studios didn't know how to go find that audience. But I do think that there is a huge audience for this show now, right? And I think it to me, it's just really heartening that the marketplace, has opened up so much for just sort of a diversity of stories, right? Of different experiences and different folks and living these journey, experiencing life through just different people in different areas of the world. I mean, you couldn't have released an American movie that was set in Korea, that has Korean language in it. Like what? Think of that 10 years ago. Like there's just no way. So those are like some of there were some of my ambitions, my criteria. The other thing is, and this might be a little embarrassing to say, but I'm going to say it. I love Hallmark Christmas movies. I just really enjoy them. I see all the flaws. If you said to me they're vapid, they're stupid, they're conflict light, I would say, yes, you're 100% right. And one of the things that I really wanted to do was I wanted to make a Hallmark Christmas movie. And one of my really good friends, Spec, went out and sent it to me and was like, what do you think? And I thought, well, this is great. And I tried to sell it and I couldn't sell it. And then I just got a call out of the blue that was from a producer at Mar Vista who said, hey, I know I passed on your script, but I just sold it. So I don't know how to listen with it, but if you want to do it with us, like we'll make it. And I was like, well, okay. And so we made this little movie for $550,000, I think. It was literally a week of prep, 7 days of prep. Not a 5-day week, a 7-day week of prep, 3 weeks of shooting, and 4 weeks of post. And I'll just say the movie's not good. I mean, there are things about it I'm super proud of. Like there's stuff in it that I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe what we achieved on that money and that schedule. But if you watched it and you went, oh boy, this is a doozy, I'd be like, yeah, it probably is. But like made it. And I learned so much.
And now you can check that off your bucket list.
I want to make more. I want to totally make more. I mean, it's like, listen, to get to make stuff, and that audience is so passionate for that content. They love it. I actually sold a book to Hallmark just recently. The deal fell through and it didn't work out. But can I just tell you, my family was so excited that I sold a book to Hallmark. They were just like, you're gonna make a Hallmark movie? That's awesome. So I mean, yeah, those are the things. I wanted to do stuff that I like to do, that I want to do. And I don't want to work with assholes. Like I know that I'm gonna encounter assholes on my journey, like, cause it's the business. And as you start putting things together, you get personalities. But I was like, I'm not starting in that place. I want to work with my friends. I want to try to make things with my friends. I want to try to support this network that's, that we've all kind of grown together. So those were some of my goals. That's a really long-winded, windy answer to your question of what kind of material do I like.
But I would also say everybody needs to figure out what material they like. Sorry, Monique. I think, as you develop your kind of voice and your brand and what's the sandbox you like to play in, right? You don't always have to do the same thing over and over again, but you will gravitate towards certain kinds of material, and then you may evolve into, a job or a role or just a different part of your life where you might gravitate to other kinds of material. But I think you have to have sort of that filter, that taste-making filter that says this project is definitely not one I'm in love with or is right for me, even though I could see it being a blockbuster or whatever it is, right? So it shouldn't be driven purely by what you think in a mercenary way is going to go or not go, because you have to actually love it, as Samantha was saying, and be able to bring your point of view to it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I said no to things that I probably should have said yes to because they were going and it could have been like, a paycheck, but I was just like, I'm gonna work too hard for that, like in a not good way, work too hard for that paycheck, like it's not enough money. And maybe that was not but I mean, the other thing I will say, just to what you said, there was an agent who used to be in the business for a long time named Deborah Lieb, who was just like a wonderful person. And she was big on know your brand, develop your brand and stay within your brand. And I've kind of done a crappy job of developing my brand, but I'm working on it. It's like one of the things I'm figuring out as I go. And I've worked so long under someone else's brand that I think I'm also just having that like fun experience of getting to, try some things on for myself and figure out what's the kind of stuff that's just easy for me.
That's great. We'll kind of end it there. Oh, sorry, Monique, did you have one other thing you wanted to
No,
add?
I was just saying thank you.
You're welcome.
So yeah, we'll end it there. I think hopefully everybody had a chance to kind of, even if you didn't ask a question, have some takeaway that's relevant to your experience or what you're kind of encountering as a blocker or a hurdle right now. Samantha, thank you so much for coming and doing this with us and joining us, our very first AMA and our LaunchPad. And I'll give you the clap that's live and
thank you.
Kind of...
I do just want to say one thing. Like, listen, it's really hard in this business, and it is a business filled with no and filled with obstacles, and you hear no so many more times than you hear a yes. That when you do hear a yes, you don't trust that you're actually hearing a yes, and you just have to keep pushing at it and just keep finding ways to just kind of keep hustling and do it. I mean, look, I don't think I can do anything else. Like I'm just so deeply, like part of me wishes I could do something else, but like I just can't. I just love it so much. And I think, always hanging on to that enthusiasm and helping you to just get through all of the walls and the blocks and the things that are there in the way, and just know you can do it. Like just keep that faith in yourself and that your stories are strong and they'll come together. You just have to keep moving, keep swimming upstream, and it will happen. It'll come together, and you'll celebrate the wins, keep your goals. Make sure there's dream goals and make sure there's attainable goals. Like, you got to keep those dreams alive out there for the big things you want to do, but make sure there's attainable goals along the way. And finding forums like this is amazing, and this is a great little clubhouse. I love it. I'll be back.
Awesome. We're ready. Let's plan our next one. So thank you, everybody. Hopefully you got a chance to look around the clubhouse. We'll be doing more things in this space and letting you know what they are in our emailers. And if you guys want to use the space, again, it's available to you using the unique password that we sent you. You can come anytime between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. to grab a meeting room or to grab a spot and have a meeting or a creative brainstorm or whatever else you might want to do in the space that is with other members. It is a members only space, and we ask you not to share your password since it's your unique password. And so with that, we're done with our AMA. Thank you everybody for joining, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much, Samantha. Really appreciate it.
Bye guys. Thanks. Have a great one.
Everybody.